In this video, I'll show you how I grew potatoes this season. I'll also talk about common myths I see online about growing potatoes. Let us start by saying that potatoes are one of the easiest crops to grow, provided that you grow them at the appropriate time. They're very sensitive to environmental conditions in my experience, and this can affect the growth of the plant and the yield that you obtain. I plant them by simply digging a hole as deep as my trowel can dig and place the potato in. I do not cut them, as even after drying I have found that in our wet weather the potatoes tend to rot. Here in Zone 9B I start my potatoes in early February. Depending on the year, I'll start them a couple weeks before or a couple weeks after our average last freeze. I tend to plant them earlier rather than later, in particular if the year is warmer than usual, like this year. I have found that potatoes do not like our hot, humid weather all that much, so in order to have a good growing season, I start them earlier, despite the risk of a late freeze. In this clip, you see me planting russet potatoes from the store that had started sprouting. This brings me to a common advice seen online. Never plant store-bought potatoes. I always do this and get plentiful harvests. My philosophy when it comes to gardening is to produce as much as possible with as little as possible. If you have some potatoes that have started sprouting, why waste them? If you have the space, plant them. That way, you get to plant the varieties that you already are eating. Along the same vein of thought, I do not fertilize my plants at all. I rely on the compost I dress my beds with, and I am pleased with the amount of produce I get from my garden. If you do not have enough compost, because let's be honest, who does? Watch my video on how to produce compost every 3 weeks. Once the potatoes are in the ground, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for the plants to come up. Keep potatoes watered, but do not overwater them. I consider potatoes watering needs similar to those of tomatoes. They're cousins after all. If things go well, you will start to see some potatoes poking through the ground as they get bigger. Vigilance is key. You want to cover them up with compost or soil. Normally, I don't have compost available just in time, so I pull compost from around the plant to heal it up and cover the potatoes. Potatoes go green if exposed to light. These become toxic from what I have read. I have not had any troubles eating my potatoes, but I check them often and do not let them green, just in case. Here you see me harvesting a bed of potatoes. Note that I do not use a pitchfork to harvest them. I have poked a few too many potatoes in the past, so I just use a small trowel and my hands. When to harvest potatoes, you ask? Do not ask me. Ask your plants. Your potatoes will slow down and turn less green, even yellow a bit. That's when they're telling you to pull them out. I succession plant my potatoes with heat-loving plants, such as okra, amaranth, butternut squash, so I pull them out a little bit early, around mid-May. I hope you liked this video. If it motivated you to grow potatoes, let me know in the comments below. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. It costs you no money, and you may learn a thing or two. Start practicing that growing more for less mentality. Until the next time, this is Jose.